Welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast. My name is Ian Wright, and I'm your host today. I have the privilege of bringing in a special guest, someone that's also actually outside the scope of the FST, but does fascia work, and it's Dr. Amy Mayer of Mayer Fascial Wellness. She's based out of Omaha, Nebraska. She's also a doctor of occupational therapist and her own podcast, the Fascia Informed Therapist. Dr. Mayer, welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast.
It's Mayer.
Mayer. Oh gosh, Mayer.
I was going to give you that. Yeah.
Mayer, yes.
Mayer. It's a common mistake. No, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being a guest when most of your people are FST therapists and practitioners. I am outside your scope, but I love anybody who wants to educate the public about fascia.
Yes. So, just to, to jump off right away, how did you come up with Mayer Fascial Wellness? What was the idea to brainstorm about this that you came up with?
One of my primary goals is to help educate people about how paying attention to your fascia is an act of wellness. It can help you be well. Most of the time in healthcare, we're thinking about how to fix a problem, and I would rather have people prevent a problem. But I do both in my practice.
And you've been an occupational therapist for how many years?
33.
33. Oh, wow. Okay. So you have seen, and you're just in 33 years, or probably more, of like how fascia has has fascia been around 33 years ago that people were aware of? Or is this something that you've seen that's not suddenly, but like just in the past few years that's been coming? You tell me, because I'm new to this. I love to kind of hear your expertise and like your viewpoint of how fascia has been coming along. So go ahead.
It's pretty fascinating, actually. When I was a brand new graduate and I just got out of school in 1992, when I was in school, I was taught that fascia wasn't important. We had to do human dissection, and we could see this white stuff on the human body, and we're asking what that is, and we're told, oh, that's fascia, but it's not important. It's like packing material. It doesn't have a function in the body other than to take up space, which goes totally against nature, right? But then when I got into my first job, we had a physician on our staff. I was in an acute rehab hospital, and he really wanted us to learn other ways of helping people with pain that weren't medication based. And we had a therapist that went to a workshop to learn some myofascial technique, and she came back and she got super busy and she was looking for help, and I was the eager new grad who said, teach me, I'll help. But it was so interesting, Ian, because I was taught that this stuff wasn't important, but she was telling me I was doing something to the fascia. And so that I know, but keep in mind, this is 30 some years ago. And so I was fascinated with how can I be doing this thing that is being so helpful to people, but yet fascia isn't important. And it set me on this, feels like a lifelong quest to try to understand fascia. And of course, that was before the internet was really a thing. So trying to go to the local library, the university library, find anything I could, it just wasn't there. And it wasn't until the early 2000s, I think, that I found Thomas Meyer's book, Anatomy Trains. And I started, whoa, somebody else is talking about it, writing about it. And then it set me on this quest. And I had worked in all different kinds of settings, and people would actually make fun of me, call me a voodoo queen for doing what I was doing. There's no evidence behind it. But at the same time, they would approach me and say, Amy, I can't figure out what to do with this client. Can you help? Or my shoulder's really bugging me. Can you help? So there was this big dichotomy of what I'm doing isn't science-based, but people still know it works. But then as time moved along, more and more people are hearing about fascia, more evidence is coming out. The science that includes fascia as a variable is exploding exponentially and on PubMed and places like that. So more therapists are open to it, but there is still a lot of stigma around it. And I'm really trying to overcome that. And then the other piece of that puzzle too is that that the public is starting to hear about it through yoga, through sports, through the beauty industry. And they're starting to ask their physician, they're starting to ask their therapist about it. And so my mission at first was just to have this quiet little practice where I could do what I love. It has sort of shifted into this trying to educate other practitioners about what I know now and what I've been practicing for several years, helping them understand you're going to be getting referrals for myofascial pain soon because doctors are starting to pay attention to it. You probably already do. So please pay attention, because there's a lot of different ways to affect the fascia, even without putting your hands on people. Anyway, that was a lot, but yes, it's been an interesting journey from going to no evidence at all to just floodgates are opening with the evidence related to fascia.
That's very interesting, because that's so with Kristen and Frederick through the Stretch to Win Institute. It's been about 30 years plus too that they've started the Stretch to Win Institute. So it's funny how it coincided the same time frame that you had started your journey, because I believe what their mission too is to kind of empower people to learn more about the fascia itself, and how your body is made up of this, in layman's term, this sheath that's holds, it's intertwined. I mean, it's such a complex thing, but it's beautiful, because only now that people are seeing the importance of that, that layer that actually has so much different properties, whether if it's the neurological, the emotions that hold, the fascia holds, the tension. I mean, there's so much wonderful things that I'm learning myself with no, medical background. Is fascia is what drives us to gives us, energy. That there's so much I can go on, but I'm just curious to hear on your perspective as well of how fascia and occupational therapy go hand in hand, and how you're doing that at Mayer Fascial Wellness.
Well, from the perspective of an occupational therapist, one of our core tenets or our beliefs is that it's the things that we do every day, our occupations, our activities, is what brings meaning to our lives. And so as occupational therapists, we want to find ways to help people find meaning by doing the things that they want to do in their lives, whether it's things they have to do or things that they want to do. And we find ways to help people do those things either through helping them rehabilitate them, or if they've had an illness or an injury, we try to get them back to where they were. But if they have an illness or injury like a stroke, and maybe they're never going to get back to the way they were, we find ways to help them compensate so that they can still do the things, they just maybe aren't doing them the same. So in my practice, I mostly work with people who they can do the things that they want to do in their daily life. They're probably just not doing them to the quality that they want to do them because they have pain, or they have stiffness, or they have limited mobility. And so we help them pretty much experience a better quality of life, because we can help teach them how to bring that pain level down. Because what we know now is that most of the pain that we're likely experiencing in our bodies is not musculoskeletal pain, it's fascial pain, because the fascial system has 10 times more nerves embedded within it than the muscular system. And that blows people's.
Yeah. I always like to ask this to every guest that I have, but how do you explain fascia to someone who does not know anything? General public, like, because you're sitting with so many clients, I'm sure, and you have to explain fascia, but in like simplicity, so that they understand why you're treating them in the fascial way. Like, how do you explain that to someone?
It's hard because I love to go down the rabbit hole and really explain it to people, but I think the thing the information that I just said about your fascia has 10 times more nerves than your muscular system, that gets people to listen. Because when they start hearing things like that, they're like, oh, and then I say things like, well, that means your brain is 10 times more interested in what's happening in your fascial system than in your muscular system. And so that really makes them pay attention. What I explain it to them is that your fascial system it's a three-dimensional web of tissue that covers and surrounds everything inside your body, down to every muscle fiber, every nerve, every circulatory structure, every organ, everything. And it not only surrounds everything, and this is I think a really important piece that's often missed, and it's an important word in the definition of fascia that you see on the Fascia Research Society site, and anytime you see that big long paragraph definition, it's the word interpenetrates. So if it doesn't just surround. So if you think of your arm as a nerve running through your body, the fascia doesn't just surround it and the nerve runs through it. The fascia embeds itself within it. It interpenetrates it. So your fascia has to have that just right balance of tension to hold that nerve in place, but stretch in order to allow that nerve to move in the amazing ways it can move inside our body. So I think that piece is important because that really helps people understand when you stretch one thing in your body, you're really stretching everything in your body because everything's sort of stuck together and being held in place via your fascial system.
Yeah, that is true. We always kind of give an analogy or even a t-shirt, where one attention and you see the lines, it's where is it coming from? That the pain, the source of pain also has to travel from somewhere else. And so that I think it's important that, we also show that to clients because what I do on the table is I stretch people, but, a lot of people say, well, I can stretch myself. But then I have to explain to them, no, I'm stretching in the fascial line and the fascial net. That's how I can help people. Sure, you can stretch yourself and you'll feel good, but how I do it, we're working with your fascial line that you cannot see. That I'm actually certified and I'm learning how your body's supposed to move. So I love that. I love that it is like you're saying, your organs, everything, it just glides, it moves together. It has to. I would be amazed if the fascial and the muscular skeletal system if it contradicted each other, if it didn't move. I mean, that's the thing about the body is just, it's in one unity. It has to be, in order to move. So another question I have for you, what are some misconceptions that you heard of about fascia and how, you probably have to overcome people about how, like you're saying, voodoo magic or.
Well, there's actually still a lot of therapists out there that believe the very old information about fascia. And I've had clients come to me saying, a friend told me I should come, but when I mentioned to my physical therapist that I was going to see a myofascial therapist, they told me that there's just no way to affect the fascia because it's this hard stuff that they saw in their human dissection. And that's very, very different from what you see inside a living being. And when we have the technology now to look inside a living being and see what that fascia is doing, it's a very different story from someone who is not living anymore, who's dead. So that's probably one of the common misconceptions. And I just had a conversation with a therapist who was going to bring me in to do some education, and she was saying there's so much stigma out there. How can you really do it? There's no science behind it. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we have the science of the system now. The science of the system is clear. And when we know that, then we can make a lot of inferences as to how we can affect it. And then slowly the science is coming out on how we can affect it. And there's so many ways to do that. But probably the biggest myth is still it's tough. We can't do anything with it. Not true. Not true, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess, how did you get into occupational therapy? I mean, with you work in fascia, was occupational therapy something that you always wanted to get into, or is it something that you kind of found along your journey of, career?
I originally wanted to be a clinical psychologist when I went to college, and at one point, I was imagining myself sitting in a room across from somebody else all day long, and that sounded very boring to me. I'm a person that needs to move a lot, so I started searching of what I could do and took one of those tests, and it said you should look into occupational therapy, and I fell in love with it because you get to move around, you get to see lots of different kinds of people, and you're rarely sitting in one place, and that suited me very well.
So what would you tell to that someone who is, there's a lot of college, students out there probably still deciding on careers. How would you kind of guide that individual to see, as occupational therapy as a career choice? What would you tell?
Well, there's a lot of great reasons to become an occupational therapist. Maybe what I'll do is I'll focus it in on why you'd want to be an occupational therapist and know about fascia and integrate those things. Because we actually have a student working with us right now in our practice she's getting her doctorate in occupational therapy, and she wants to learn more about fascia and how that intersects. And she has a special interest in working with veterans too, who have a lot of mental health issues. And you were saying earlier about the emotional component. The reason that I love being an occupational therapist and doing fascia is because we have expertise in looking at the human body and the person and how they're moving in daily life. And one of the things that we know about the fascia is that our fascia is continually adapting to how we position ourselves. And the fibroblasts are sort of listening, they're feeling, they're sensing the pressures in the body from gravity, from how we hold our bodies, and then they're rebuilding our fascia continually in order to create the body that we're asking it to create through the pressures it experiences. So a huge component of what we do in my practice is we're teaching people about posture, teaching people about how to move better so that when they're doing their occupations, like, sitting at a desk, what 70% of people do that now for their jobs, then how can you inform your fascia to build healthy fascia via your choices of postures or how you engage in your daily life? So I think if someone wants to work with people via the fascia, but also be an occupational therapist, that's a skill that I think we bring into it that is really helpful to my clients, because my goal is to teach them things that we help them get better and feel better, but I also want to teach them how to stay better.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
what got them into the problem in the first place was probably the poor posture and the poor, body mechanics at their office or doing whatever they do, right?
Yeah, I think as therapists, we are giving them a treatment, but we are also giving them not only homework, but certain lifestyle or habits that they can change so that, like you're saying, not so that they don't have to come see you, for periods of time. And
Right.
I think
I
that's
want
more
them to come
empowering.
see me. Yes, I want
Yep.
them to come see me for maintenance, for wellness, not just constantly be fixing a problem that they could be preventing easily.
I guess I know you kind of mentioned to me, I guess you're from your perspective, Mayer Fascial Wellness, um, who are your typical people? What are they coming in for? What type of, I guess, issues are they coming in for to get treated?
Probably a lot of the same stuff you see, right? Back pain, neck and shoulder issues. We also see a lot of people with TMD issues. That's an epidemic, post-COVID. Plantar fasciitis, hip pain, knee pain. I mean, you name it. But we also get some unusual things too, like stomach pain, painful scars, and some people that just, I'm curious about this fascia thing. Can I experience what you do? That's always delightful. but, but yeah, it's a massive array. Infants up to people in their 80s. I mean, it's a huge range, and that's what I think makes my business really fun, is that huge variety.
So, and I've never been to Nebraska or Omaha, but
Okay.
I guess the type of work that people are doing there, who are they? What the demographic and population? What do they do? What are they coming in for? Like I said, you mentioned the lower back pain and hip, but what type of occupation are they doing that's making them come into your clinic?
I see a huge variety. We're a decent sized city, so we have a lot of variety in the businesses. But I would say there's a lot of the people that come are probably people that sit at a desk a lot. We do have people that travel in from the more rural areas of Nebraska and Iowa and maybe have done farming or other types of things like that. But I would say it's over the board. Retired. I've seen a lot of kids in sports and having issues with their bodies from that perspective as well.
And then as far as you know, I guess who is like your staff? Are they fascia trained as well? Do you train them, or I know you have a course or a fascia course, correct, that you currently have? Do you have them enroll and go through it so that they're informed of your teachings and so forth?
Mhm. Well, when I first started my practice, I intended it for it just to be me because I just wanted this quiet little practice and have a nice quiet little life, but it didn't work out that way. I had actually took a student a couple years ago who was getting her doctorate in OT and had heard about fascia and done some fascia work as an undergraduate. And she was from Washington State and she was getting her doctorate at Creighton here in Omaha. And she ended up doing a 4-month rotation with me and ended up staying. And now she's in her second year with me. And she's also, yes, taken all the live and the online courses that I offer now. Now she helps me create them and teach them. So yeah, it's been great. I did not expect her to come out of nowhere, but she did, and it's been super fun.
That's wonderful. Um,
Uh-huh.
I'm I'm keen to find out, kind of give us an overview of like your course. How did that come to be? And of course, your drive behind this course that you're offering about fashion.
I actually have several courses, but the real foundational one is integrating fascia science into practice. And it's anyone can take it, but it's written as if I'm speaking to occupational therapy practitioners because that's the language that I know best. But I invite everybody who wants to take it. And it's basically giving everybody a very practical look at fascia science and trying to send the message that if you're a practitioner of any kind who is required to have a working knowledge of the human body, you're missing a piece. You're missing a piece, and that's the system of the fascia. And I want to teach you about that. I want to teach you the practical things you need to know, and then I want to teach you how you can include fascia in your assessment process, and then all the different ways that we can affect the fascia through hands-on and hands-off methods. And then I have other classes that teach people about posture and movement and how fascia intersects with those things and the detailed pieces of how you can learn about it. And you kind of asked me this and I skipped right over this, but I didn't have an intent to do those things. It was only after my practice really started taking off and other therapists were approaching me like, how are you doing this? What is happening? Why are you having this success with this thing that nobody knows about? And started asking if I would teach them. And so I started doing some live courses and then the online, let's reach more people and create something online. So it sort of evolved into that. And something I guess I haven't said yet, I spent 20 years in academia being a faculty member teaching occupational therapy. And so I have all these teaching skills. Why am I not doing this? That has actually evolved into, I was contacted by a publishing company, Cognella Publishing out of California, and now I'm working on a textbook on,
That's awesome.
I it's not something that I had ever intended to do, but it's going to be called the Occupational Therapist Guide to Fascia Informed Practice. So basically, how can you inform yourself about this system and let that information integrate into what you do as a practitioner?
Mhm.
And I've got about 4 chapters done and 6 more to go. So yeah, it's cool. It's exciting. And I feel like I'm living my purpose of helping other practitioners learn how much this can add to your practice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, you're using your skills and your talents, obviously, in the way of something that you're passionate about with fascia, and that's cool that you can blend those two together
Yeah.
with your vast knowledge and experience. So, kudos to you.
It's interesting too, Ian, that because I've read Chris and what's his wife's name? And Frederick, I've read their books, and it's so interesting to me how the principles that they follow in the fascia stretch therapy are very similar principles that I learned 30 years ago in terms of that slow, that you don't want pain, you want to find that restriction. There's just so much. And I love that so much because they also are like, it's not no pain, no gain. You have to be gentle. You have to find that just right stretch. Wonderful how that this information is coming from different angles. And eventually it's all going to come together and people are going to go, why didn't we pay attention to this before? So thank you for putting information out there as well.
Yeah, no, that's one of my reasons for my podcast. I started just, a person like myself, no knowledge about fascia, no knowledge about FST or stretch to win, and kind of putting this as a platform for those who are looking for resources and all in one. And I kind of, the second season of my podcast, I wanted to include people who are also have the knowledge of fascia like yourself and how that incorporates with different practices and different skill set. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we all are working on trying to, heal this body, especially through the fascial system. And I think that's why it's so cool, because I can learn that what I'm doing and what you're doing, like you're saying, it's different perspective, different modalities that your body can adjust to and your body can get healed. And it's an awesome thing, because not one thing, fascia stretch therapy can only do so much, occupational therapy, vice versa. There's so many different modalities that I can only do so much, but you and others could probably can help that individual. So that's what makes this awesome.
Yeah, I would tell you if you were here in Omaha, I would probably refer clients to you because there's so much room. There's so many people who have pain. It's such an epidemic, and there's so much room for all the different approaches. And what we tend to find in our practice is it's not one thing that's going to heal people. It's layers of things. It's what we do, it's what you do. It's teaching them what they can do. It's sending them to a yoga class. It's people have to find that just right mix for themselves of what's going to make them feel their best.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I had another question. I know you mentioned something about like how the approach of helping someone heal without having to put hands on, like, I guess kind of backtrack on like, how do you approach to that, your clients, of how you can help them without putting hands on?
Sure. We teach a lot of self-treatment workshops. So we use these little therapy balls that are squishy. In the literature, they call them stress transfer tools, and they should be as soft as your hand is if you felt this part of your hand. So you don't want to use super hard things like golf balls and lacrosse balls. But what we teach people how to do is put pressure into their bodies with these softer balls, following the same principles that we use to treat them. So going slowly, find the resistance, hold it for some time. So we teach small group workshops on how they can do that to themselves. And at the same time, we're educating them a little bit about their fascial system. We might be teaching them some ways that they can stretch their own body without the balls. We teach them a little bit about posture. So it's more, we don't touch them in those workshops, but we're giving them a lot of information about how they can.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think the stretch to win that we have this thing called life stretch, where as a practitioner, you can get these stretches that they do at home, or you can teach in a group setting. And that's something too that Chris and Anna started, because they found that practitioners need to take care of themselves, obviously with the type of work that we do. And plus we need to give, like our clients, that we only have, a certain time frame on the table, but it's what are you doing from the time that you see me until maybe if you see me next. And that's kind of that homework and that self-treatment that they need to continue to do, because I'm a therapist. I can only do so much for your body to heal, but it's those habits, those lifestyles, a daily thing that kind of compound, basically you need to be able to.
The language that we use is that you're not going to go live in nature and take away all your stress and not, quit doing your day job. The tension's going to keep coming into your life, and you have to find ways to chase that tension out. So, and finding that just right balance. So they're going to need strategies because their life's going to be their life.
Yeah. I guess kind of changing gear. How have you found, what type of like marketing or like sales tactics, ways that you have grown your business from the time, inception of Mayer Fascial Wellness to now, what has been the success for you in growing your business?
The number one most important piece is word of mouth. Right? The most important way to get good word of mouth is to do really good work and create. I think people love coming to us because we provide a really nice, relaxed atmosphere, and we put about 30 minutes between every client, so we're always fresh. We're always ready to go. We're in this wonderful setting where we don't have, and we're non-traditional. And in a lot of traditional practices, therapists are being required to see anywhere from 8 to 20 people in a day.
Yes, I
And that's
remember.
just,
I heard that in one of your podcasts I was listening to.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So anyway, it's providing them a real, we never rush them out the door. If we need a few extra minutes, we'll take it. Creating something that makes them like, oh wow, this is a really nice place. I really feel good. I've learned a lot of good information. They're going to go tell other people. And that is so much more valuable than advertising in a magazine, which we're doing right now. We opened a second location in June of last year. And we've been doing some advertising in a magazine, and I mean, we've gotten one person in 7 months from that magazine, but so many more people from just word of mouth. So we're probably not going to do that again, but it was worth a try.
Yeah.
But social media is another good way to stay on top of mind. And then I also do a newsletter once or twice a month, one that goes to the public and then another one that goes to therapists. And those things tend to, when you provide some education and just, hey, remember we're here if you have questions or you need something. So those are good things too.
That's awesome. Is it far from your first location, your second location?
It's about a 25-minute drive, so I would say it's probably 15 miles. I don't know. I haven't done that math, but they're on basically opposite sides of Omaha. One's way on the eastern side of Omaha, and one's way on the western side.
Gotcha. Was it just because of the demand of people coming in, you just had to open up another spot?
But we didn't really have enough space for me to really add Caitlin at our original location. We had to sort of create an extra room with a curtain. So we decided once she really started getting busier, we actually were contacted by a chiropractor asking us if we would be interested in coming out, because we've definitely found that softening up the fascial tissue prior to getting a chiropractic adjustment can make a massive change in their success. They invited us to come out there, and that's a huge growing part of Omaha too.
That's crazy. So I actually work at a chiropractic clinic doing fascia stretch. So it's amazing that chiropractors there as well see the importance of fascia work on how it can help.
And when practitioners are willing to team up like that, you can just exponentially multiply your positive outcomes. It's just great.
If you had to give any advice or tips to aspiring occupational therapists in Nebraska, what could you share with them?
Stay open-minded. I think when you ever approach your practice as you've learned everything there is to learn, that's a dangerous thing, because science is always evolving, and it's interesting how when you really start to learn a lot about something, you realize how actually little you know. But when you know very little, you think you don't need to know, or there's nothing there. You don't know what you don't know. That was a lot of no's, but but be open-minded. And I think the therapists that have come to my live courses, have learned online, they're like, wow, how did I not know this? I don't know how to explain it, but I think we're going to continue to learn about the human body. I think that probably the next evolution is going to be more energy type work. And, once we can better and have the technology to understand that, we didn't have the technology to understand fascia the way we do 20, 30 years ago, but it's here now.
Yeah. And then I guess I actually kind of want to go about your course. I'm not sure if I touched on it, but what can someone expect to, if they come in person or even virtually, what can they expect if they were to enroll into your course, as far as an occupational therapist or even someone who wants to learn about fascia? Kind of give us a brief overview.
If they were coming to a live course, I teach a 7-hour course. People can get continuing education for it. They can get a certificate if they need that for whatever license they hold. But what you're always going to get first is the science behind it. What can affecting the fascia do? And then typically what they want the most is, okay, what do I do with my hands? And how can I help people? And where do I touch them? And how do I do this? And there's other people out there that will teach you the technique, but my passion is really teaching how to apply the technique in traditional settings. Because most occupational therapists work in hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, school systems, pediatric outpatient. So how can you apply it? Like we have an occupational therapist might work with someone who can't lay face down. And how do you work on their shoulder? How do you work on their back then? What are your options? What if I have a woman who's pregnant? How can I work with her? Or I have a diagnosis that's really complex. How can I still use this? So taking that basic manual therapy technique and taking it into more complex systems. And it's a very different animal, I guess, than a well person walking into a clinic and saying, okay, where do you want me? Some people can't even get onto a table, let alone lay face down. How can you position them in a chair? How can in a wheelchair? I've had people in wheelchairs come into my clinic. How do you do that? I love that complexity. It's kind of my jam. But if you take a course, you're going to learn more about what I tell people is you're the expert in your field. Like if they're an expert in working in an ICU in a trauma hospital, you're the expert there. I'm going to teach you the foundational information, but you can work with that to figure out how you apply it in your practice area. And I love to do that problem solving with them, but they're the experts. It's like somebody teaching you about the muscles. You're the expert to figure out how that works in your area.
Okay.
But it gives people a whole nother layer to their thinking and problem solving when they have this knowledge to weave into what they do. Because it's not just about pain, it's about proprioception, interoception, you alluded to that earlier, and we're affecting so much when we affect the fascia.
Yeah.
The immune system, just everything.
Yeah. Lymphatic system. It's so crazy.
Yes, it surrounds everything. If you take the blood pressure, did you listen to the podcast on blood pressure? I mean, that's taking the pressure off creates more space inside the body so the blood can flow more freely. You tighten around those vessels it has to pump harder, and so the blood pressure goes up. So yeah, if we always ask when we have a new client, are you taking any blood pressure medications? Because you'll have to keep an eye on that. If you really work at this, then you may be able to take those down. I get a little excited about this stuff, Ian.
I can feel it. I can very feel your excitement. I guess my last two questions I have for you is, what are your future goals for Mayer Fascial Wellness? You've opened up a second location already.
Well, here's my big audacious goal, and it's already kind of it's slowly rolling out. So right now, here's the goal. I'm in the process of creating a certification for occupational therapy practitioners. So if they learn about the science behind the fascia, learn some basic techniques, and the public, and the reason for a certification is the public is starting to look for people who have knowledge about fascia. Pretty soon, your referral sources, your physicians are going to be educated, and they're going to be looking for practitioners who understand fascia. And if I can say, occupational therapy, I can't necessarily I could create it for other practitioners, I guess. But my first rollout's definitely going to be, the language that I know the best for the OTPs. They're going to be looking for people who have knowledge in this area and can treat these people who have fascia-based pain, which is most people. Once they figure that out, they're going to want practitioners who understand this system. They're going to be looking for you. They're going to be looking for me, right? So that's my big next step goal, is to create that certification and reach as many therapists as I can.
Yeah. And coinciding with writing your text.
Yeah. There's a contract there, so I gotta get that done first.
Oh man. And then of course, what would you want to share with future generations about running a practice like yourself? It's hard. I'm sure it was hard starting just yourself and having to run a practice, because I didn't grow up in entrepreneurial. Most people aren't, but for yourself, like what would you want that person to understand the importance or the road of being an entrepreneur like yourself?
Two big things come to mind right away. One is start small. Start in a place where you don't have to get a small business loan if you start small. You don't need a ton of equipment. You don't need a ton of space. I actually started part-time while I was still teaching at Creighton. And I went in, a friend of mine who was a massage therapist had an extra room, and she just let me use her extra room for 10 months until I worked up the courage to quit my job and do this full time. So starting small like that, I didn't have to take out any loans. And then as my practice grew, then I could add things. And then she and I ended up co-leasing a bigger space that had a classroom, and we're still in that space today. So start small, don't take out a lot of loans. The other thing I would say is we are a cash-based practice, so we don't process any insurance. And a lot of therapists are of the belief system that people aren't going to pay for that. But if you can offer something that's really good and you can create an atmosphere that people want to come to, they will pay for that. People are hungry for something different. People are hungry to be listened to be heard, not just to, okay, this is your problem, let's write you another script for that. It's very, very doable. It's very doable. And be open to that thought, that idea.
It's funny that you mentioned that you're a cash-based practice, because when I started my journey in the assisted stretching realm, I was in a physical therapist's office that transitioned from insurance-based to cash-based. And they saw the benefit. In the insurance space, it's all about numbers. How many patients can you see per hour? And those clients, they're there to get treated, but typically they're not the ones who are going to do the homework, or they're there just to get treated, but they're not there for a long-term goal. People who are cash-based, they're paying their money up front to you because they know that this is going to help them. They believe that this is going to help them. They're not just there just paying co-pays. No, they're paying their whole cash up front, knowing that you're the therapist, you're going to fix them, that you're going to guide them along the journey. Plus, as a business owner, for cash base, you're giving them the best within that hour or whatever it is that you're seeing them, because you don't have to hit numbers. It's all about, like you're saying, giving them good service. And in return, they're going to continue to become a loyal customer along the way because of the service you've given them, not because you're pressured into seeing how many patients you can see in an hour. And I've been there. I've worked in healthcare where that's the norm, right? And you've been there. I'm sure you can attest it. It's just the atmosphere in a cash-based practice. The therapists or even doctors, they're there to really take care of their patients and not to just hit numbers and figures. So it's a much relaxed environment for sure, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. And when they're paying out of pocket too for the whole thing, they come invested. They come ready to learn and ready to do their homework. And that makes it so much more fulfilling for me as a therapist to see that improvement and see the change in the client and them going, wow, this really works. This is really helpful. It's a win-win. It really, really is.
Well, Dr. Amy, I'm glad I could have you on my podcast. Learn more about yourself, your clinic, what you're doing, your mission. It's such a wonderful thing to hear different people and different walks of life understanding the importance of fascia. And I hope that everything that you're doing continues to grow and that you continue to do well, especially with the textbook and your course and your certification coming up. Hopefully everything goes well. I'll make sure to keep an eye on your practice and what you're doing. I would love for my audience to, of course, find ways to either follow you and, of course, book an appointment for any of your services that you provide. So if you would love to share with the audience a way to reach out to you in your practice, whether if it's an email, the phone number, or website, and of course the physical work locations, they're aware there in the Omaha area.
Sure. The public-facing website is Mayer Wellness, Mayer wellness.com. And on that website, you can find our locations, you can find a booking link, you can find a whole lot of resources. We have YouTube channels, all kinds of information there. For the more practitioner-facing information, that website is Fascia Informed. And on there, you can find our podcast, The Fascia Informed Therapist. We're on most major outlets like Apple, Spotify, all those. And then there'll also be links to our courses on that site as well. So mayerwellness.com or fasciainformed.com. And therapists, you can look at each too, because therapists, you said earlier, you need to be treated as well.
Yes, definitely. Oh, and of course, the social media handle, if people want to contact you or follow. What is your social media handle?
We're on in Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. The Mayer Wellness is our primary public facing, and then Fascia Informed on both Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, perfect. And of course, do you have your podcast? Is it every week? Is it a monthly thing that you typically?
I'm putting them out weekly. They come out Sunday afternoons. So as soon as see Ian or hear Ian on my, I'm mostly audio, but I've started doing some video-based ones as well. So we'll see where I'm at when you come on.
Okay, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Amy. My pleasure to have you on my podcast, learn about what you're doing, and like I said, best of luck for your business.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Ian.
You're welcome. And for those of you listening, please don't forget to subscribe to the Stretch to Go podcast. We drop our new episodes every Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, subscribe. Thank you.